podcast. Okay, we are now live on both platforms. Here we go, Greg.
Welcome, everyone. It's 6 o'clock on Monday night, and you're listening to the 66th installment of the Age Out Angels Radio Hour on www.hamiltonradio.net, Channel 2. I'm your host, Greg Rapport. I'm the founder and executive director of Age Out Angels, a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. Age Out Angels provides one-to-one mentors to vulnerable youth for the purpose of coordinating the care and services that they need to survive. We try to help youth avoid some of the horrible pitfalls that they're likely to face if they don't have a proper safety net. This program is brought to you every week at this same time, courtesy of Doc G, William Saunders, Ruben Rodriguez, and the fine people here at Hamilton Radio who allow us to use this airtime. Ruben is at the big board tonight, along with Doc G. We have the whole brain trust here, and Robin is producing the show. Greetings to all of you, and thank you so much at home for tuning in. We've put together what I hope you will find to be an insightful and compelling view of the child welfare system. So get ready, because tonight on the Radio Hour, two great guests. Chris PESZKA, Regional Supervisor of Adoptions from the Heart. We're going to talk about the adoption process and maybe why it seems to be so difficult to adopt when there are 125,000 children in the foster care system alone who are eligible for adoption and looking for homes. Then later in the show, we're going to talk with Peg Gould, Assistant Director of Community Education and Training at Mercer County Community College, and her experience of doing training and education for people in the community who need it is really sort of second to none. So you're going to want to stick around for the whole show tonight. Please, right now, find us on Facebook. Even if you're listening on Hamilton Radio, go to my name, Greg Rapport, on Facebook, and hit that share button, or even better, email your whole address book and tell everyone to go to www.hamiltonradio.net, Channel 2. Tell the world what we're doing here. Topics like adoption and topics like education, they deserve to be shared. This is not something we want to keep private to ourselves. Share this with the whole world. Don't keep it private, and help us share it, because they're important topics that affect all of us. And while you're doing that, let me remind you that we're here every Monday from 6 to 7 with the Age Out Angels Radio Hour. We have a great lineup of guests coming up. Next week, December 17th, our last show of the year, because we're not going to have a show on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve. So our last show, we're going out with a bang. We're going to show you how once great cities like Trenton, Philadelphia, Camden, any urban area, even urban areas near where you live, are systemically turned into ghettos, and you're not going to like what you hear. This makes people very, very uncomfortable. I'm going to say three words that you might want to look up on Google before next week's show. I'm going to say them right now. Ready? Mount Laurel Doctrine. If you look up Mount Laurel Doctrine on Google, it will blow your mind, and we're going to be talking about all that stuff next week. We're not shying away from it, because, I mean, this is something that's been like sort of unmentionable for the last 40 years or so, and it's just amazing the way it's been swept under the rug, and it's at the root of the child welfare crisis in this country. It is the absolute root. It is ground zero of the child welfare crisis. Also, Janice Kanuski will be back co-hosting with me next week on December 17th. Then on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, no show. And we'll be back on January 7th with more on the educational system and our special guest, Catherine Mitch from Literacy, New Jersey. So be sure to tune in every Monday at 6 p.m. for our unfiltered look at the child welfare system. This is where you come to get the whole truth. I can almost guarantee that what you will hear in the next hour will not be on the nightly news. So please stay right where you are and share. And guess what? You can call in tonight. I gave my card actually to a whole bunch of young people tonight and told them that they could call in and complain all they want and not even have to use their real names. So if you guys are listening, feel free to do that. And now I would like to introduce you to the gentleman sitting to my right, if you're watching on Facebook. His name is Chris PESZKA. He is the Regional Supervisor from Adoptions for the Heart. Welcome, Chris.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I said for the heart, but it's actually adoptions from the heart.
That's correct. It does
All
come
right.
from the heart.
Little self-correcting on the air. So, Chris, first, I'd like you to give us sort of a brief overview of what Adoptions from the Heart is and what it's all about.
Great. Yeah, we're a private nonprofit agency. We've been around since 1985, founded by our executive director, Maxine Chalker, who's an adoptee herself. And we primarily do domestic infant adoption. We are in certainly New Jersey, but we're also in 5 other states in the mid-Atlantic. And we have 8 offices in those states.
How long have you been with the company?
I've been with them just a little under 4 years now.
For total disclosure, I guess I should point out that I know Maxine Chalker.
Yes, you do.
Right? But that's actually not why you're on the show.
That's correct.
Right? The reason that you're on the show is because you and I met at the New Jersey CPAC Partners Moving Forward.
That's right.
Right? And so why were you there? Like, what was your purpose in being at that?
Yeah, I certainly think we're committed to not just providing adoptive families for newborns and infants, but I've been working more here in New Jersey to assess and approve adoptive parents who might be interested in adopting older children from the foster care system. And I really wanted to see what other resources there were and how we can partner and collaborate with some of those folks.
Oh, that would be so beautiful because there are so many more older children suddenly available. They blame the opioid epidemic. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah, and certainly we're seeing that when we're working with expectant and new birth parents who have just delivered a baby and they're at the hospital. And they can often make a voluntary plan of adoption as opposed to having the child go into the foster care system, and I think we can provide that resource as well.
Right. Okay, so I got used to Adoptions from the Heart from the point of view of open adoption, right?
Yes.
That was the buzzword, was open adoption. Are there different forms of adoption, and does Adoptions from the Heart do those other forms, or how does it all structure?
Yeah, I think open adoption, you really have to think of it as being a continuum or on a spectrum. We certainly, when we're working with an expectant or birth parent, we offer that minimum level of openness, which is that you can have some ability to choose the adoptive family for your child. You can get a sense of how often do you want to see them. Our minimum requirements are that all of our adoptive families agree to at least visit with the birth parents once a year if they want to. But there's also a lot of exchange of information. We send pictures and letters back and forth between the birth families and the adoptive families. They get updates at least once a year around the child's birthday. And it provides a real sense of continuity for the child. They have a sense of their origin, a sense of their history. It's not just that they've been adopted and they never hear or know anything about their birth families.
Yeah, I remember like 2 different feelings. I remember adopting the first child being a totally different feeling than adopting the second child, right? So first of all, I just want to go back for 1 second and remind anyone who's out there who's listening who may be expecting and thinking about giving your child up for adoption that at Adoptions from the Heart, you do get to sort of look through a book of pictures and see bios and information about the people and get a feeling for who you think might be best to raise your child. Okay?
Exactly, yeah.
So that can be very important, to some people. And what I remember from adopting twice was the first time the open adoption idea was like a little scary.
Absolutely.
Right? The first time it was scary for us because like we were worried that we wouldn't be the child's only parents, right? That we're sharing, right? We're not sharing the expense. We're paying that, but we're sharing the love. And we weren't sure what all that means, And what we found, of course, is that and what I suspect is true mostly is that when a birth mother gives a child up for adoption, she's really not looking to be an active force in that child's raising. The reason she's giving it up for adoption is because she wants the confidence that someone else is going to do a better job than she would have.
Exactly. And I think there's a lot of myths about open adoption, and you're right. It's not co-parenting. The birth parent is not looking over the adoptive parent's shoulder and telling them how to dress the child and making those decisions. And I think children know that. They know who takes care of them, who nurtures them on a day-to-day basis. But still having access to medical background, I think, is important. And as I said, knowing a bit of their history and their origin and where they came from, I think is really important. And even for older children in foster care, I think that's why a life book is so important. That even if you can't be with your biological parents because of abuse or neglect issues or safety issues, that at least you have some sense of who they are and have some connection to your past, to your history.
Yeah, and the first, I remember the first adoptive mother we met, and it was really cool. It was very enjoyable, rewarding experience. The second one didn't want to know us from Adam. By the time we got around to the second one, we were like ready for open adoption, right? We're like, hey, come on, let's have a drink, not of course when she was pregnant, but but then she was like, no, I don't really need to meet you and all that stuff.
And that's not uncommon for adoptive parents who have adopted more than once, that their open adoptions look very different, and they may have a much more open adoption with one and less with the other.
So I guess the point that I'm making here is that within that open adoption framework, once they look at the picture book and see the bios and select who they think they would want to raise the child, after that it's sort of kind of fluid as to what makes everybody the most comfortable.
Yeah, and like I think with any relationship, it can grow and change over time, and I think you're exactly right.
Now there are other forms of adoption, right? I mean, there are such a thing as closed adoption.
Yeah, I mean, I think at least with our agency, the very least, we want to share that information in the beginning about the medical information and some information about who the birth parents are. Not so much identifying information, but just some basic information. But you're right. I mean, some of our expectant and birth parents say, I really don't think I want a level of openness, and we'll hold, but we still have the adoptive parents send pictures once a year, and we have them write letters, and we hold them. And sometimes we'll find years later, a birth mother or birth father will come back and say, I think I'd like those pictures now. I think I'd like to know more about my child.
Yeah, they're sort of ready at some point in time to kind of look that over.
Definitely.
Yeah. So tell us what the steps are in the adoption process here. What let's say I'm a family and I want to adopt. How long can I expect it to take before I see a child?
On average, I would say the approval, the assessment process that adoptive parents go through takes about 4 to 6 months. There's a number of adoption education classes. We do a thorough background check on the families, but we also want to do a lot of education and make sure they understand all the parameters and what adoption is all about. Once you've been approved, and certainly in the state of New Jersey, you've met all the criteria, you go on the active waiting list. And as I said, when we work with expectant or birth parents, if there's a match for some basic criteria, then the expectant and birth parents get to look through those profile booklets that you mentioned in the bios. I would say on average about 85% of our adoptive families wait 2 years or less. So that could be anywhere from just a few short months to 2 years.
And you said most of what you do is domestic.
Yes.
Right. I mean, there was a time when international adoption was a huge thing.
Very much so.
But it's not quite as huge.
It's not.
As it was before. Who left the game?
I think it kind of worked on both sides, both I think the U.S. as well as some of the other countries. There was some real changes in a lot of the laws and regulations, and I think that's a big part of it.
There wasn't a trade tariff, was there?
Not that I'm aware of,
okay.
no.
All right, good. I should point out, by the way, that Chris actually wins the award tonight for coolest tie in the studio.
Thank you.
So
I picked it just for this occasion.
What are some of the education classes that prospective adoptive parents
Well, we certainly talk a lot about open adoption and what that means and what it doesn't mean. We prepare them for what life is like going to be as a parent. Many of our adoptive parents come to us having had infertility issues in the past and haven't parented. But we also get a fair number of people that have a biological child, or some folks that come to us and say, we've never had that desire to necessarily have a biological child. We'd like to offer our home and our family to a child or a teenager who needs a family.
Yeah.
So we talk about a lot of developmental issues, certainly parenting strategies and techniques. We talk about discipline and what that is, many of those kinds of issues.
Oh, yeah. We had to sign a document that said we would never hit our children. Is that still a thing?
It is. I mean, certainly our agency has a policy to not use any kind of physical or corporal punishment, and the state of New Jersey certainly does in terms of adoptive parents.
I thought that turned out to be one of the coolest things ever, because a couple of times when I wanted to, that piece of paper rang up in my head, and I just said no, and I'm glad. I'm glad I didn't go that route. So That was pretty neat. So you take the education courses. I guess there's a home study.
There is,
Right?
yes.
That goes in. So they come into your home and they make sure that there's enough bedrooms and it's clean. And I guess basically that's the same visit a social worker would make if they were doing an investigation.
Similar. I mean, we're looking for certainly safety,
Yeah.
basic safety things, and if family can financially support the child, and we have to do a criminal and child abuse background check. So some of those are very standard things that are in state regulations. But it's not a white glove inspection. We don't check the tops of the moldings necessarily, but we want to make sure that this is a loving, nurturing home where a child's going to be safe.
Yeah. And once again, you said that you've been doing this since 1985. This company,
Yes.
has been around for a very long time. So anyone who is looking to adopt or anyone who is looking to offer a child into a loving home would certainly understand that this is an agency with a pedigree that's been around for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, I mean, over 30 years, obviously, and we've helped almost 7,000 families build their families through adoption. We're very proud of that.
So where do babies come from, Chris?
Well, I could say the stork.
How do you handle it? How do you handle it when, all right, a pregnant young person calls you up and I want to say and says they're thinking about adoption, but I'm wondering if when a pregnant person calls you up, if they're in a depth of conflict.
Oftentimes, yes. Yeah, I mean, we see both women and couples, and they come to us all different parts of their pregnancy, sometimes just after they found out they were pregnant, and sometimes very late in the pregnancy. Yeah. About 50% of the time, the birth mother has already gone to the hospital and delivered the baby and tells the hospital staff that she's considering or interested in making an adoption plan. So one of our social workers, certainly speaks to them on the phone if they call us, but then we get out and meet with them in person and really try to get a good sense of what issues are they facing, why are they considering adoption, and we go through all of their options with them. We want them to be committed to placing their child for adoption if that's what they ultimately do, because it really is a permanent solution. But we go through the possibility of placing their child temporarily in foster care, looking if they can get assistance from relatives to help them care for the child. We don't want them to make a permanent plan of adoption if this is a temporary financial situation perhaps or a housing situation. But once we've gone through all of those options and they're committed to adoption, that's when we move into having them select the family based on their preferences and based on matching with the family.
Okay, so it's not like they call you up and you sell them on the idea
Not at all.
Of adoption. You're going to offer them various alternatives and make sure that if they decide to offer for adoption that it is a permanent kind of situation. I guess it's in everyone's best interest to think it through.
Absolutely.
Thoroughly at a time when emotions are probably at, just in a very bizarre place, both mentally and hormonally.
Yeah, and these are, as you can imagine, often unintended pregnancies, and we want to make sure that they thought through every option, and then if they need assistance and if they need to be referred for other services, we do that. But when they feel that they're committed and this is the best choice for them, and certainly for the child, I think that's what we always try to do. We always try to put the best interest of the child first, and what it is that's going to be best for them in terms of permanency.
So I'm thinking about the relationship between the foster care system and open adoption, right? And I'm wondering if people might find that to be a little bit more advantageous, like to adopt from the foster care system in an open adoption environment, because the youth in the foster care system typically don't want to completely lose touch, right, with their biological family. It's different than adopting at infancy.
Correct.
Right? So what we're talking about here is now a wealth of older youth coming into the program. And I think maybe the first mistake that people would make thinking about adopting an older youth is that you're really only going to get a couple of years with them, right? And then they're going to move on. And I'll bet you dollars to donuts that that's not what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. A 16, 17, 18-year-old youth, if you were to adopt someone from that age group, they would love you forever because they get it. By that age, right? By that age, they totally understand the value of having a permanent family. the way, much younger kids just simply wouldn't have the perspective, to understand that. So do you have like a plan right now for how you're going to work in conjunction with the foster care system in order to?
Yeah, what we've been doing is, and it's mostly been driven by adoptive families that have come to us and have said, we know you're a licensed adoption agency in the state of New Jersey. We're interested in adopting an older child. So we've been doing those home study evaluations and approving them, and then working with those families to find children who are in the system who are legally available for adoption. Unfortunately, right now in the state of New Jersey, the Division of Child Protection and Permanency have different standards than private licensed adoption agencies.
Right.
So those children aren't necessarily able to be adopted by adoptive families that we approve, but other states will allow that. So we've been looking to match these families with children from other states, and I'm hopeful that in the future there can be more of a partnership and collaboration between New Jersey private licensed adoption agencies and the Division of Child Protection and Permanency, so we can provide more adoptive resources for children who need permanency.
125,000 kids.
It's amazing, the number.
Wow. I mean, it just boggles the mind. And a regulation somewhere impeding that process. And it sounds to me like what you're saying in New Jersey would require a legislative change.
It may. I think that the division is going to place safety and protection first, and I think they should, and that's important. Mm-hmm. But I think once you move past that, I'd like to see the ability to have more adoptive resource of homes be available to children. And
you could certainly, as an agency, provide an evidence-based argument, for your success, from that point of view of doing a proper job when it comes to stuff like that. So, I can't imagine why they would reject that. So tell me, what's your personal background? Were you a social worker?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I actually started in foster care in a private agency in Philadelphia and worked there for a number of years, starting out as a social worker caseworker, working with foster children. And
in the inner city?
In the inner city, yeah. And some of the surrounding counties, but mostly in the inner city of Philadelphia. And ultimately became the director of the program and managed that for 8 years. But it's very sad work at times, and trying to find permanent families for children after they languish in foster care becomes just incredibly frustrating. So moving to the adoption side certainly brought me a lot more personal satisfaction, because we have many happy endings. Not that we don't have some difficult situations that we encounter, but really felt personally and professionally I wanted to see working towards permanency in that kind of a system.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more happy endings. We're getting close to Christmas. We did sad endings for like the last 11 months. So what's your favorite adoption story?
I have many.
Okay.
But
do we have time for a couple?
I would probably say, one of the greatest levels of satisfaction that I get is seeing family members reunited. So I was working with a single mom here in New Jersey. She had several of her own children, but they had half siblings that were in Florida in the foster care system. And really wanted to provide them a permanent home, and there was a lot of bureaucracy. And I think also you have to realize when we're working between two different states, there's a whole nother level of interstate bureaucracy that happens between those. But through a lot of dedication on both, I think, folks here in New Jersey and the folks in Florida, and I have to say this adoptive mom, who really just hung in there and went through all the red tape and did everything she needed to do. And it took a long time, but those three boys were reunited with their half siblings here in New Jersey, and it was a wonderful day in court when we went there, and the judge finalized the adoption.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, all right, so Facebook has kind of maybe changed the game a little bit when it comes to, Facebook and like Ancestry.com and 23andMe, right? You can have your DNA tested. And I think it's 23andMe, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it's both of them, will send you a list of people who are most likely related to you.
That's correct, yeah.
So all of a sudden, there's this window into the biological family that didn't used to be open, right? So a person can possibly find, right, who they're related to. And wow.
And that's some of the work that we do. We do some search and reunion of both children, adoptees, and as well as adoptive parents and birth families who contact us, whether they work with our agency or not, through a lot of the social media that you're mentioning, or through a lot of these DNA companies where they're getting some sense of who their biological relatives are.
Yeah. One thing, though, one sad note is I saw situations where there'd be a child who grows up and says, okay, I'm ready to find my biological mother. And then they do. But the biological mother had maybe never told her current husband that she had a child out of wedlock, as they used to say.
That's right.
Right? And so she doesn't necessarily want to meet this child. She gave it up for adoption. She felt secure that it would be the right choice, the right family. But then this child has to deal with what amounts to rejection, right? And then you have Facebook. Because if this person had other children, those are legitimate half siblings of the original adopted child. And once everybody's 18, right? Or even before that, but really there's no law in the world that says I can't send you a note on Facebook that says, hi, I'm your half brother.
That's right.
So Chris, just like the Maury show, I'm your half brother. No, I'm just kidding. I'm really not. But I wouldn't mind it if I was. What, you were going to say something? What?
Well, I think that when folks come and contact us about that, we do give them some advice about how to reach out to possible birth families, and sending somebody a message on Facebook isn't always the best way to start that approach. And certainly sending a letter or working through us as an intermediary is a much better way to do it, because it's very shocking to find out, even if you have told people that you made an adoption plan, and it's not necessarily a family secret, it's shocking to hear from your adult adoptee that you haven't had contact with.
Absolutely. Especially, I would think, especially if there was like a birth father or something who maybe did or didn't, be aware that this was going on down the road. So, but what you're saying is that instead of taking that abrupt, knee-jerk route of what is tantamount to accosting a person, right, using Facebook or registered mail, you as an agency would actually reach out, so you know where to find.
We often do, but we also have birth families move. So I had a situation not too long ago where an adult adoptee reached out to me. She was maybe in her late teens, early 20s. We were able to locate the birth mother, even though she had moved, but really hadn't kept much in touch with our agency, and was very moved that her daughter wanted to have some contact with her. She and the birth father were not married and had been in a relationship, but since hadn't. But she contacted the birth father through Facebook, and he was overwhelmed that his daughter would be interested in having some contact. He lives in Maine now. The birth mother lives in a southern state, I think, Georgia. And they've started a relationship very slowly through sending some letters and some text and exchanging some pictures, which I think is a really good way to reconnect after all these years, as opposed to knocking on somebody's door or sending them a message through Facebook or some of the other social media outlets.
It's scaring the hell out of them, yeah. Like, well, for example, you might know for a fact that this is your biological father, but just because you say you are, that doesn't mean whoever knocks at your door really is.
That person.
So
right.
The reaction you might get is skepticism, and that could hurt your feelings, even though because you're not realizing the other person's thought at that given moment.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's a lot of ways that abruptness can go wrong when it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. Wonderful. This is like a fabulous thing. And if you're out there thinking about adoption, how can they find you, Chris?
Our website is www.afth.org. And you can go to our website, and either if you're an expecting or birth parent who's considering adoption, or you're someone who's interested in becoming an adoptive parent, you can get all the information there. Contact us that way.
Okay, once again, that's AFTH.org.
Correct.
Adoptions from the Heart. This is a nonprofit organization.
And it is, yes.
Adoptions from the Heart. Chris PESZKA, It's such a pleasure having you on the show. Well, you know what I'd love? I'd love it if you would like just come back every once in a while and tell us good news. You could call on the phone if you like.
Certainly,
you know?
that'd be wonderful.
But you know, when you have a good story to tell, don't keep it to yourself because we need more of those.
I certainly will.
All right. Pleasure having you on the show.
Thank
We're
you,
going to
Greg.
take a short break right now. When we come back, Peg Gould will be my guest, and you will love what she has to say as well. Hit that share button and don't go away. Thanks a lot, man. And we are back. Before we go any further, I do need to thank all the people who made donations to Age Out Angels this week. We thank you so very much for your generosity. And double thanks to the people who donated to Age Out Angels via my birthday donation request on Facebook. That was the coolest thing. I like to hide my birthday. I mean, come on, it's already 15 years I've been celebrating being 49. And it's sort of getting old, but it was absolutely wonderful to see that happen, and you all made it so very worthwhile. And also remember, if you have an employee giving fund or matching gifts foundation associated with your place of work, we would certainly appreciate your contacting us and telling us how we can participate in that. Private message me on Facebook or email to greg@ageoutangels.org. And I want to remind everyone that you can donate to Age Out Angels every time you make a purchase from Amazon. All you have to do is designate Age Out Angels to be your Amazon Smile designee, and a portion of your payment will go to Age Out Angels without it costing you 1 penny more. I can make it easy for you to designate Age Out Angels as your Amazon Smile recipient. All you have to do is contact me either via Facebook or greg@ageoutangels.org, and I can send you a link that will take you directly to our designation, save you a whole bunch of click-throughs. Also, I want to remind everyone that Aging Out Institute has partnered with Amazon through their affiliate program to compile a list of books and movies about older youth in foster care and about aging out of foster care. And what this means is whenever someone clicks to one of these books through the Aging Out Institute website and ends up purchasing it, AOI will receive a small percentage of the purchase price. And keep checking back on their website because they're adding new books and movies all the time. Go to http://www.agingoutinstitute. That's www.agingoutinstitute.org. Scroll down to books and movies about aging out and click on that, and you'll see the whole list of things that they have to offer. I'd like to highlight a book every week from that group because there are so many wonderful books. Like, you think this is hidden information about aging out of foster care and stuff like that, but the fact is a lot has been written about it. And one of the most beautiful books ever is called Walk to Beautiful: The Power of Love and a Homeless Kid Who Found the Way. And it was written by a country music star by the name of Jimmy Wayne. I wonder if any of you out there know who he is. I honestly didn't. I'm not a big fan of country music, so I didn't know who he was. About, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years ago, he was voted in the top 10 of the sexiest men alive, believe it or not. And when you read the story about his life, I mean, it will absolutely blow your mind of what this young man went through and how he managed to come out the other end. I mean, stories about, being a very young person and waking up in the morning and stepping over the bodies of alive people but still comatose in his house, lining the floors and stuff like that, and not having food to eat, and how it just took one mentor, one mentoring family to fall in love with him and help turn his entire life around. And so I don't want to give away too much of the story because you got to read the details. It's just mind-blowing. And you can find Walk to Beautiful by going to www.agingoutinstitute.org. And if you buy it through them so that they get a few bucks. Sitting next to me now is Peg Gould. She's the Assistant Director, Community Education and Training for Mercer County Community College. Welcome to the Radio Hour.
Hi,
Peg.
Greg. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here, Peg. Full disclosure, Peg and I spent most of the day together at a meeting of the Trenton Prevention and Policy Board, right?
And we had the best time, didn't we,
Their
Greg?
annual symposium. We had the best time. They had the best food, the smokehouse, I
Yeah.
believe, in Trenton.
Absolutely.
We'll give them a little plug. It was absolutely delicious, and of course, what they're trying to do is present a strategy for youth violence prevention.
Right, through the city of Trenton, that's right.
In the city of Trenton, and that's a pretty tall order.
Yeah.
And we spent all day working on it, and I think it was pretty worthwhile. And so it was through the Trenton area stakeholders, I believe, that you and I met.
Right, through
right?
TPPB.
Through TPPB, right? Oh, that's right. It was at the last meeting, and I was interested right away in what you do. So I just want to you sort of give the listeners the 30-second overview of you're with Mercer County Community College now.
Right, at the Trent campus. And my department, Community Education and Training, offers non-credit programs to adults 16 years and older. Do you want me to go on about our individual programs, Greg?
Well, my notes here say free programs.
Yes, that's true.
So this is Mercer County Community College. They're non-credit,
Right.
but they are free.
Right. This is outside of the Free College Tuition Initiative, which is sponsored by the governor of New Jersey. My programs are non-credit and they remain grant funded, and this is outside of that particular initiative.
Okay. So is the assumption that the people who would take advantage of this wouldn't exactly be ready for college?
That's correct for the most part.
Okay. All right. So yeah, tell us what some of the programs are.
Well, one of my biggest programs is English as a Second Language program, and we offer non-credit and free classes to individuals to help them learn how to speak English better so they can get a job, keep their current job, or to advance in their field. One of the exciting things that we started this year is a Microsoft Office certification as part of the ESL program. So our ESL students who are at an intermediate or advanced level are learning certification or are receiving certification in Microsoft PowerPoint as well as Microsoft Word.
So I mean, Trenton has really become an interesting melting pot
Oh, very much
over
so.
the years. So are you finding that you have 16-year-olds who come in immigration packages who don't speak?
There are getting more and
Yeah.
more of them that are coming into the college and looking for some English.
Are they all Spanish speaking, or are there multiple?
No, actually, our English classes, Greg, really mirror the population of Trenton in that about 40% are Hispanic or Latino, and our classes generally run about 40%, sometimes a little bit more, of Hispanic or Latino. And where do the rest of them come from? Literally all over the world.
Yeah.
We have them from Haiti, Dominican Republic, other places in the Caribbean, including most recently a large number of people from Puerto Rico, which is a territory,
Oh,
but
sure.
they need English language help too. We have people from Central and South America. We have people from Africa, India, other parts of Asia, as well as some Eastern Europeans and very few Western Europeans, although we do have some of those too. So literally all over.
Right. So it sounds like you have Spanish-speaking population, but may come from different areas where
Right.
they don't necessarily speak the same dialect.
That's correct.
You know, even to each other. You know, it drives me crazy when it's one thing to have an acronym, it's another thing when they change it on me.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts, and they've changed GED.
Yes, it's now HSE, High School
HSE.
Equivalency.
Goodness, usually they change an acronym because something went horribly wrong and they need to rebrand it. In
Well-
this case, I think they just did it for fun.
No, GED is the name of a test, Greg. Like SAT
Right,
is a test,
right.
GED is a test. And so when it turned over to individual state control as opposed to government control, the state of New Jersey adopted HSE, High School Equivalency, instead.
So it could be called something different in other states.
Probably.
Right. I'm sorry to learn that. So this is HSE stands for High School Equivalency,
Equivalency.
right?
Right.
Well, like, what's the age group that you have in that?
I have two
predominantly?
programs of high school equivalency. One is a Part A program, and that's for anyone 16 years and older who needs a high school equivalency diploma. Students attend 3 hours a day. Then I have an out-of-school youth program for individuals who haven't graduated from high school. It's called the Trent Makes program. That's specifically for individuals who are 16 years old to 24 years old. It's a full-day program. And that is really a stacked program, Greg. Not only is it entirely free, but the students get attendance and engagement stipends. They get their high school equivalency test paid for. They receive a stipend for every section that they pass. They receive a bonus when they pass the 5th section of their test. They receive a bonus when they complete their program altogether, which usually is about 6 months. And there are free bus passes too. So anyone who would say that transportation is an issue, I have free bus passes to and from the program.
So you've covered all the bases. You have bus passes, you have bribery, you have all of the things that motivate youth.
Incentives, yes,
Right.
all kinds.
No, I just call it bribery because I'm not above it.
Right.
You know, I use it with my children, and if you use it with yours, that's just fine. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with it at all. All right, so there's the HSE program, but the Trenton Makes program is the one for out of school youth.
Right.
For whatever reason, 16 years old, they've dropped out,
Exactly.
and they can drop back in.
Yeah.
And get paid, so to
And
speak.
yeah, and get their high school diploma and transition to the next step, which traditionally would be community college or a tech school or maybe the workforce.
And so we have here the Career Training Institute.
That's another branch of the department. So Career Training Institute is also a non-credit program, and we have administrative assistant program in that. Includes Microsoft Office certification, medical billing and coding with the certification, computerized accounting, and we also have a culinary program including ServSafe as well as baking tech experience. The cafeteria at the James Kearney campus is completely student-run, and that's part of the culinary program at CTI.
Wow. These programs are all free.
Yeah. Well, the CTI programs usually have to get sponsored through Office of Unemployment, through the County of Mercer, or sometimes an employer. Unfortunately, they do not fall under the $45,000 free credit college program, but they are fundable.
I see. Okay. And now the Career Training Institute, the programs that you just described, Microsoft Office Suite and culinary and all that, these are short-term
Right.
programs. The idea is to get people working.
Exactly. As
Yeah.
fast as possible. Get them in and get them back out into the workforce. So it's generally, although it's to a certain extent a self-paced program, generally it takes people between 3 and 6 months to complete their course of study through there.
And is there, any kind of placement service or anything like that, or would they go to One Stop after that?
We can send them to One Stop. We have a wonderful relationship with the Mercer County One Stop Career Center, but we also assist to a certain extent with job placement or work experience, paid, unpaid internship, externship. So as time goes on, and I've just taken the CTI program since August, and that program has increased 500% since August. And now calls from employers are starting to roll in. So I am able to match students more one-on-one
Right.
with their field of work
Right.
interest.
It helps if you have that demand,
Exactly.
on that side of the coin. How do you get word out about this?
About the programs.
Yeah.
Radio programs like yours, community
Happy to
events like we were at today, word of mouth. I like to say our programs stand on their own, and a lot of people come in. People have good experiences, and they will tell 2 people, and those 2 will tell 4 people, and so it just continues to grow.
I see. And how do you answer the question that a 16-year-old might ask, like, why should I go back to school now?
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. What do you got to lose, huh?
Exactly.
What are you doing that's so important?
Exactly. So if you're looking to change the way things are going, education is a wonderful way to get a new start on your life, to have a chance to do something that you always wanted to do. And the way that our programs are set up and the way that we value and cherish each individual who comes through our door is to be able to give them the best opportunities possible and to help them feel as if at the end of their class, at the end of our program especially, that they were given every possible chance to succeed, and they do.
Absolutely. You know, I'll tell you the one way that you're helping age out angels without realizing that you're helping us is when if a child ages out of the system or loses their safety net, but they've had culinary training, right? then they have that like one incredible ability to feed themselves.
Right.
Right? That's what they can do. They have no fear. I can take them to like a food pantry, right? And stock them up with food that they can get for free. And then they can cook wonderful things for themselves and eat, which is a huge.
Yeah, it's a huge
huge
advantage
component.
just to living daily life as well as to entering into the workforce. And in fact, at JKC in Trenton, we do have the Center City Cafe, and that is a live teaching kitchen. So students actually work in that kitchen and learn their culinary skills, and they're actually making food and serving food live to customers who come into that cafeteria.
Yeah, that's why they have to learn Safe Serve.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You can't do that unless you're certified
Exactly.
in that way. So you're talking about JKC in Trenton, right? Now,
Right.
we're talking about Mercer County Community College. Now, Mercer County Community College is a ways out.
Right. There are two campuses.
Okay.
One is in West Windsor, and the other is the James Kearney campus, JKC, in Trenton, right at the corner of Broad and Academy, right off of Broad and State Street. So we are very centrally located to downtown Trenton. Just about any bus that comes through Trenton has a stop right there. So.
And so the location is convenient. I've walked past it, but I've never been inside. Is it
stop in
nicely,
next time.
Is it nicely appointed?
Oh, yes, it is.
Oh, cool. And it is a college, right?
Right.
Is there like a college library there and other
Yes,
things
we
like
have
that?
we have a college library. We have a computer lab that has 75 computers in it. I mean, the classrooms have computers, many of them, but there is a specific room that has 75 computers in there. The campus also has several free tutors that are available for student access if they're enrolled in one of the programs downtown.
So tutors are available?
Correct.
Excellent. So, because I mean, the reason I think of that is just because I know that a lot of people drop out of school just out of frustration in learning, either because they have learning problems themselves, or because maybe they've moved around from school to school and there's enough gaps in their education that they reach a certain point in high school, where they just can't relate to the things that are being taught.
Yeah. And that's very sad when we run across people like that they kind of have given up on themselves. Yeah. And that's a very difficult time that someone is going through, but the operative word there is through, because it's not always going to be that way, and we help them to understand that if they work through it, there is another side, and that they are able, and that they are capable, and that they are valuable, and that when they come through the door, maybe they don't know something, but when they leave at the end of the class, they'll know something.
So, but can you give specific remediation? Like, let's say a person never learned their times tables.
Our classes are small enough that our teachers can give some extra work or some extra time. Our teachers also make a point, and this is one of the features of my staff that I am very proud of. They work very individually, as much as their schedule allows them to, with individuals who come into the department. And if students need extra support, like I said, there is tutoring upstairs, or at certain times we might have to refer them out to one of our partner agencies who also provide literacy services on a much smaller and slower pace than we do at the college.
Right. So what's the ratio of students to teachers?
I will cap my classes at 20 to 25. Sometimes I swell them up a little bit, especially for ESL, because the demand is so great. But I really try to keep the HSE and literacy classes at 20 to 25.
I think a bigger class is better for ESL. And I'll tell you why. Just any time I've had language classes and things like that, you need people to talk with.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's the one situation in education where a bigger room is a better.
It's always a red flag to me if I walk by an ESL classroom and it's quiet.
Right. There's two people in.
Because it means no one's engaged.
Right.
So it's a noisy group. My classes are all very noisy. I have 7 ESL classes there every day. I also run a Saturday ESL class. So we are really moving the second language learners through their language experience as fast and as well as we possibly can.
So what kind of end goal should people have in mind? What should they be thinking when they start looking ahead into their own future?
They should have an idea of, a lot of people say, oh, I just want my high school diploma. Well, and then what? Well,
Yeah.
I just want my high school diploma. Well, there is something else. And whether that is the workforce or even the military or going into college or vocational school, we help them to establish some goals, stick with their goals, and reach their goals as much as possible.
All right, so what we're talking about here is more than just learning enough to pass the test and get a
Right.
piece of paper.
Right.
Right? Because I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them got pushed in from a parent or relative who said, you know, damn it, you're going to get your high school diploma. So
Yeah.
then you ask, why are you here? And they say,
Sometimes,
well, my
right.
mom made me get
Yeah.
my high school diploma.
Yeah.
So you need to make them think differently.
Right. Well, think differently about themselves.
Yeah.
And about their whole approach to learning and education.
Yeah.
And to make our programs a place where people want to come. And that's what keeps them coming back, and that's what keeps the programs growing.
Right. I mean, one of the things that I've seen that disappointed me a little bit when I've looked at a lot of career training and jobs type, you know, programs, career programs, is that people will come in and sit down and they'll say, is this where you come to get a job?
Yeah.
Right? Well, no, it's not, because, you know, earning $7.75 an hour, I believe that's the current minimum wage, if I'm not mistaken. Could
I
be. Is it
think it's
$8.25?
actually more, yeah.
Is it $8.25 now? Okay, I'm dating myself. But that's $7.75, $8.25. Pick a number. You know, that's not enough. I think somebody told me that you need somewhere between $14 and $15 an hour.
Right.
You know, in order to live.
And some local
Trenton.
employers have actually raised their minimum wage to be that $14 to $15 an hour.
Yeah, but thinking of it more in terms of a career, right, than a job, having a marketable skill.
Right.
Right. So I bet you have to sort of take people on a little journey
Yeah.
beyond what they're currently thinking
And that's right.
in order to make that happen. So when are these classes?
Well, I have classes there every day of the week, including Saturday, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, and like I said, Saturday mornings, 6 days a week.
Do you ever sleep?
No.
It's a reasonable question. I think it sounds like whenever a person can get there,
We have something for
you
them.
know, there will be a class for them. You have full day classes.
Part-day classes. We have classes as often as we can, as much as we can.
What's the hybrid option?
Hybrid is basically my afternoon literacy program for high school completion. Students come into the Trenton campus twice a week and have face-to-face class with instructors. The other 2 days of the week, they have online assignments that they must complete and submit to their teacher. And for years, we tried so desperately to run a viable afternoon program. It's a very difficult time of day. People have to leave to pick up their kids. It doesn't really work with part-time work, all of this, doctor's appointments, everything. So we tried a hybrid. It's maybe about 5 years ago. It was solid, so I expanded it, and now I have 2 hybrid classes in the afternoon. So it's a wonderful experience because students need computer literacy to be able to take their high school equivalency test on the computer anyhow. So they're getting both their computer skills as well as some self-discipline through a hybrid program. They have to be accountable to themselves twice a week at least to do their online assignments. And then they can ask questions, get further instruction when they come into the college live.
Do you have to go out on the street and pull them in?
No.
No, good.
No.
Because it occurs
Exactly.
to me that there are, in addition to you, into Mercer County College, the high school equivalency is actually offered by several, you know, organizations. ISLES, I know, has a high
ISLES
school
has
equivalent.
one for youth. The college is the lead agency for Title II programs in the county, And together with those Title II, that's the HSE programs and literacy providers throughout Mercer County. So Mercer Street Friends is a partner. They have ABE, Adult Basic Education, as well as a high school equivalency program. Literacy Volunteers, Mercer County, works with individuals at a very low remedial level almost, but they do a wonderful job of helping individuals one-on-one or very small groups to bring their basic literacy skills up. And then there are other places around Princeton. YWCA is an HSE testing site, and Latino American Legal Defense and Education Fund is getting an HSE program up and running in Spanish for individuals. So there are quite a few around.
Programs that are out there doing this.
Right.
And I think, one of the things that we all have to think about is that they're not taken advantage of to the extent that we would like them to be.
Exactly. It's just like anything else that's free. People don't know about it until they need it, and then they realize, well, maybe it's too late, or it's too late in their life to go to give it a try or something.
Yeah.
And, that's one of the unfortunate sides of having non-credit programs is it's in large part word of mouth, and it's in large part individual, referrals, as well as me being out in the community.
I think it's the lament of a lot of nonprofits too, where
Exactly.
people don't necessarily want to donate money to us so that we can advertise on the side of buses.
Right.
It would be great though, don't you think? A bus going down the street with your program would be beautiful, right? But nobody wants to spend the money,
Yeah.
to do that, and the bus company doesn't want to give it away either. So we're sort of kind of locked into that. So what I would like all the young people who are listening tonight to do is to send me a note on Facebook in the comments field. And here's what I want you to tell me. I want you to tell me what it would take. What does a bribe look like to you? You offer a stipend.
Right.
Right? You offer a bus pass.
Right.
Lunch?
No,
Not lunch.
Not
you have
free
to bring,
lunch.
so you have to bring your own lunch. All right? But come on, you could go get your high school equivalency and make more money than you would have if you had stayed in school. Right?
I don't know. I don't really advocate for anybody leaving school
No, of
to
course
come to
not.
my program.
Because you've lost time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, it's always better to kind of stick it out for 4 years if you can. But if you can't, that's why programs like mine exist, to be able to give people a chance, to be able to give people who have come into some bumps on the road the opportunity that they're looking for, and to be able to engage them in a way and help them to feel better about themselves and understand that they are valuable and that they can contribute something.
And there are so many reasons that people drop out of school that aren't just necessarily because they were lazy, right? I mean,
I've never met somebody like that.
People drop out of school from health reasons. People drop out of school because maybe they had a responsibility at home,
Right.
that they had to take care of a sibling or a special needs sibling or a parent,
Right.
or something like that. There's people will drop out of school because they're bullied,
Right.
right? They just don't want to go
Seeing more and more of them.
after a certain point. And of course, when they get into a program like yours, that bullying thing, which is really kind of an immature adolescent thing, right? That at the college level, that doesn't
We don't
exist anymore.
No, we don't even expect that.
Yeah.
Not at all.
That's really not a thing. So there are wonderful, wonderful opportunities out there, regardless of the reason you dropped out of high school,
That's right.
to take advantage of this. So how can people get a hold of you?
They can go on to the college website, www.mccc, Mercer County Community College.edu. There's a link on there for the James Kearney campus, and my programs are on there. They can call my office at 609-570-3133.
Okay. So you would call the Community Education and Training Office.
Correct.
Right? Again, that's 609-570-3133. And if you forget any of these phone numbers, of course, you can always hit me up on Facebook, and I'll be happy to give this information to you. The website for Mercer County Community College is www.mccc.edu, and you would click on the James Kearney campus.
Correct.
Is that what you would do to see to see all the programs that are on there. Peg, I am so fortunate for having met you.
Thank you, Greg.
And
Yes.
I hope you'll come back as well and tell us success stories. We
Oh,
want to
absolutely.
hear good news.
Oh, and if
Okay.
I can, real quick, ESL is having registration next week, 17th, 18th, and 19th of December. And HSE classes are having registration 7th, 8th, and 9th of January. Trenton Makes, I take phone calls at any time. CTI, phone call referrals, anytime.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another hour talking about youth who should matter more in our political and economic discourse than they do. And we thank you so much for tuning in, maybe helping spread the word. Again, we offer humble thanks to Hamilton Radio, to my most excellent guests tonight, Chris PESZKA, Regional Supervisor of Adoptions from the Heart, and Peg Gould, Assistant Director, Community Education and Training at Mercer County Community College. Thanks to our engineer, Ruben, our producer, Rob, and music provided by Kurt Seldom-Ridge, owner-operator of the Cave Rehearsal Recording Space in Pennsylvania. Our webmaster is Carmen Garcia Valera. Our social media specialist is Bailey Braverman. Join me next Monday, next week, December 17th, a frank discussion about fair housing. So be sure you're sitting down for this one, along with co-host Janice Kanuski, Chief Operating Officer of New Jersey 211. So until then, let's make this week the best week ever. Have a great evening. Great.